What is up, everybody? It is Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the Dr. Vibe Show. I like to call myself the host of Epic Conversations. I am also the. I gotta spin a crazy last one. Let me have my breath.
Start all over.
I'm also president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. And I love what I do because it helps myself, but more important, it helps other people. And if you've been around for a little bit, on Tuesday nights, we do a weekly conversation at 8:30 p.m. for men and those who love them. And tonight, well, let me introduce my friend first, Jay. Jay Cookingham is with us, and he's got 20 minutes. So I said, Jay, get your shiny head on the screen for 20 minutes. We got two shine heads going at the same time.
There you go. There you go.
You come on a lot, and I really appreciate it. Don't take it for granted. But why don't you share a little bit about yourself before we get started with the conversation?
Sure, absolutely. I'm honored to hop in anytime that I'm listening. It's always a great show. It's really cool. Me, I'm 60 years old. I've been married to my wonderful wife for 34 wonderful years. I have 7 children. 5 boys, 2 girls. I've been following Jesus Christ for over 50 years. And I come from a house and when I grew up was a very abusive household, but God has set me free. I am able to speak to men about that all across this country. And you know what? I live a blessed life. I'm one of the most blessed men on the planet. So there's my life in 30 seconds.
Beautiful. You know what? You just gave me another conversation piece for an upcoming men's conversation. Because I'm always got my ears out. The challenges for men raising children today.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it is a challenge.
There you go. So I've already got another within like 2 minutes. Got another conversation piece going.
Any way I can help you. Any way I can help you.
Right back at you. And follow Jay on Twitter. He's at Strategic Jack. And he rocks it out. Well, I got 17 minutes left. So, all right. So tonight's conversation is men. How do you deal with vulnerability? And the influence for this conversation tonight is, for those who don't know, there's a wonderful lady online named Brene Brown, and she has a lot of content videos about vulnerability. And I highly recommend, if you get a chance to watch any of her YouTube videos or anytime she's on Oprah, she is wonderful conversations about vulnerability. And I said to myself, I saw a recent video, vulnerability versus empathy. I said, let me just stick on the empathy piece, not this empathy, sorry, the vulnerability piece, because whether we like it or not, men are vulnerable at times in their journey. And absolutely. I want to just have a conversation for men and those who love them. Ladies can jump in too. How do you handle vulnerability? What does it look like? And I'm going to give a quick definition of vulnerability from dictionary.com. And it says, capable or susceptible of being wounded or hurt as by a weapon. So Jay, when you look at this topic, when you came into the blab tonight or the conversation tonight, when you saw this subject, what was your first reaction?
I guess I was, there are many ways to describe vulnerability outside of the dictionary, for sure, right? Sure. And everybody's experience with being vulnerable or protecting themselves, the opposite maybe of vulnerability, is different because of the way they were raised, their environment now, all the traumas and the struggles we all face. But it intrigued me from this point of view, because I'm sure there are many ways that men deal with, this. It's probably not a word that men like to use that much, about being vulnerable. We want to be strong. We want to be protective. And we think that's the way a man should be, that maybe vulnerability is a weakness.
I know that you are fairly transparent.
Try to be.
From your journey as a man, what were some of the give me a one or two vulnerable moments in your life. They may even be current, and how are you handling them, or how did you handle them to overcome the vulnerability?
Yeah. If I picked one out from the past, it was a kind of like a group of them together, coming out of the moving out of my house, moving out of the abuse cycle, so to speak, becoming my own man, you know, finding my own way. I became very closed-minded. I didn't want to show any weakness. I didn't want to show that I was vulnerable. I wanted to show that I was on top of everything. And it's actually when I met my wife for the first time, when I met her, and I realized, man, if she doesn't know me before she marries me, this is just not going to work. This is going to be heartbreaking down the road. And so I was really vulnerable with her almost the second time that I was actually with her, saying, look, here's my life story. Do you still want to be with me? It was a huge vulnerable moment for me. Just explaining all, you know, it was huge. But it really set me free in a lot of ways. And, you know, because my wife, she listened. Well, she wasn't my wife then, but she just listened, she cared, and she showed empathy. And she was just so concerned about where I came from, and it did not scare her away, which gave me the courage to continue to open up about these years of abuse. And I learned that vulnerability actually was a way towards freedom.
I like that. I like that. Do you feel, as a father, I know some of the children you have are boys, are the vulnerabilities that your sons are experiencing different than the ones you experienced while you were growing up?
I would think so, and I think they would agree with that statement, because I wasn't allowed to be vulnerable to my, you know, I just couldn't be. I couldn't express emotion, any emotion, joy, fear, any of that was shown as some kind of threat to my father. So it was, you know, you had to be unemotional around him. So now, when being set free and having children of my own, and giving space from, especially my sons, but also my daughters, of course, to express their emotions, to express the things that they're afraid of or they're going through, that stresses them out, gives them, you know, the permission to share their heart, their mind, and all those things. And they learn how to be vulnerable because their dad is. And, you know, going to them, saying, when I made mistakes with them, and say, you know, please forgive me. Some of the most powerful words a dad can speak in vulnerability, saying, you know, I screwed up here. I did something wrong. Would you please forgive your dad? Huge, huge teaching about vulnerability.
Wow. And you would have never seen anything like that coming from your father.
No, my father, he would never admit that he was wrong. He was always right. And even, you know, when you might have got an ounce of courage to go against that, it was met with severe retribution. You know, you didn't question Dad's vulnerability, so to speak.
So what do you feel have been some of the root causes to? Okay, let me put it back. So do you feel that men are more vulnerable in general today than they were compared to their fathers?
I think in some ways, yes. And, you know, that generation, you know, taking my father out of the kind of abusive picture that I paint sometimes of him, he was a hard worker. He, you know, to the day that he couldn't work anymore when he fell off a roof. Okay, that was a story. But, you know, but that generation, man, they didn't talk that much about anything, about any of the things that they went through as kids. The stories, at least stories from my dad, were about, you know, jobs he did. He was a carpenter. About the hunting. He used to love to hunt. It was never about him, really. And so I think nowadays men have been, I think we've noticed that we need to be vulnerable, and to be, if we want to know our wives better, if we're married, or know our kids, because that vulnerability opens doors to relationship. And it's not weakness. Again, it's a huge strength. And so I do think it's different for men today, although it may still be a problem for some.
Now you hang around with a very open group of men. You've mentioned before you have a very strong relationship with a lot of your inner circle. You don't have to give names, but what are some of the things that they express they're experiencing vulnerability in?
It runs the gamut from, some addictions they might be struggling with, with some dark things, some personal habits that have gotten a hold of them, from issues with maybe an exchange child, someone that's run away, or, things at the job, all these things that, we want to hold close to the vest sometimes, because to some men, their career is everything. And to either lose a promotion or something like that, it's very devastating to someone, to their image. But some of the guys in my circle, we've been very open about a lot of our failures, things that we don't do well at, and that we need someone to kind of come alongside of us and say, you know what, I need your help here. You seem to be successful in this area. How can you help me in this? And you can't get that help unless you're vulnerable about your own weakness, which again, I think turns into a strength.
Well, I just want to, before we continue, I want to invite or say shout out to Sam_Teague. Welcome. And also Seawheel Builder. If you want to come on and join the conversation, we'd love to have you gentlemen come on and join, because I know Jay's got 9 minutes left. So I don't want to be left alone in regards to this. So Jay, let's delve into this. You mentioned a very interesting two words: vulnerability and failure when it comes to men.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expand a little bit on that subject for us?
I think men in general hate to fail. We see it as a great sign of weakness when we fail at something. And at times, if we think we're going to fail at something, we might not even attempt trying to do something, even though we might want to, it be a career or some kind of adventure thing that we might want to attempt, or even a relationship of some sort. If we think we're going to fail, a lot of men kind of hang back in the shadows saying, I'm not trying that. Because I know that I'm going to fail at that. And so we see failure as this huge, huge thing of weakness. And really, failing is not weakness. It's just an opportunity to learn something. It's an opportunity to learn about yourself and about the life that you're living, whether or not there needs to be changes made, or, your attitude needs to change, or you know what? Some of my failures have taught me the greatest lessons in life, and it's made me a better man because of it.
As a father of children, what suggestions, and this is a two-sided conversation piece, when it comes to your vulnerabilities and addressing them with your children, how do you handle that, and what suggestions can you make to other fathers or men out there? And then what do you suggest for younger kids when it comes to expressing vulnerabilities to hopefully their father or parent in their life?
That's a great question. Two-parter that could take me an extra 10 minutes. But
I don't want to rob you now. That's why I'm getting the best I can. That's why I'm getting the best I can with 7 minutes to go.
It is all good. It's all good. I think the most important thing I've been able to do with my kids is to make sure that they know that home is a safe place to fail. It's a safe place for something that is not maybe right in their lives. It's a safe place to do this, to discuss these things, to discuss opinions and attitudes and things that might be different than their dad's. And for the most part, I think we've been able to talk about these things. So I would suggest that you make lots of room to listen. Lots of room. This is why we have two of these things and one of these things. And dads are too quick to try to fix something, to try to give a solution to something. And then we don't really hear the heart of the person that has the issue. And if I know me, if I think I'm not being heard, I am not going to be vulnerable. I am just not going to do it. And I found that out with my kids too. If I give them space, man, they will open up and everything comes out, their worries, their concerns, and that is vulnerability. That is expressing what's on their heart and mind. So I would suggest to listen and learn how to listen really effectively so that they know that you're more concerned about their heart than making them correct, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I just want to shout out. I want to shout out to Van. Have not seen you for a while, my man. Would love you to come on this conversation because I know you've got a lot of valued experience that would help everyone who's watching this live or pre-recorded. It's interesting what you said about, actually, and I actually sent out a tweet out because you said you've been saying some wonderful things. I got it now. Many people don't realize that men will share their vulnerability if you provide them a safe environment.
Yeah.
How important, because I think a number of people are missing the boat on this. Can you expound a little bit about safe environment leading to expressions of vulnerability in a good way?
Yeah. I think what I mean by that is that person that is sharing their heart with me or sharing their struggles or being vulnerable, that they know that they can trust me, that I'm not going to judge them on it, and I'm not going to spread the word about it either, that it stays with me, and that I'm going to do whatever they ask me to do about it. If they ask me to pray or to think about it or to help them with an issue, providing a space for them to be safe is that they know that they can trust me, that the information stops with me, first of all, and that they know that, man, I am not going to judge them on what they share. I'm just going to listen to it, and I'm going to try to love them through it if I can. If it's a child, of course, I'm going to love them through it. I'm not going to judge them. That's to me what I think a safe environment is. It's space and time to be able to express it, but they know that they can trust me, and I'm not going to give that. I'm not going to broadcast their issues.
Wonderful. And I really want everyone to listen to what Jay's saying, because that is so important to many men. I mean, it's one of those things that isn't talked about a lot, but it's such an underlying foundation for men. And, one of the reasons I do this conversation is so many people have told me along my journey, men don't talk. Men don't talk. They don't say anything, this and that. I say, you provide them an environment that's safe, they'll talk your ears off.
Yep. Because everybody wants their story to be known. Really, that's really the core of a human being. We want to be known and to know other people. We want community. We do. But we're so afraid sometimes that whatever information I share, if it's a weakness or if it's just something I'm unsure about, it's going to either be made fun of, it's going to be mocked, it's going to be judged, or it's going to be spread all over the neighborhood. And man, that'll make a man clam up. It'll make me clam up. And I think I'm a talker and a sharer. But man, I tell you, if I know that's going to happen, you're not going to get me to say a word. So a safe environment is crucial. And I think
men, and especially ladies, can attest, when a man shuts down, Yeah. Many of them, they shut them down. They shut it down big time.
Yeah, for years. It could be years before they open up again. And it's so sad. It really is sad.
Well, sir, I've got my 20 minutes out of you. I don't. So I don't want to extend it. I don't want to extend the time that you promised me, but I really appreciate you coming on and sharing a few minutes with us. Anything upcoming in regards to your journey in manhood, or anything you want to share with the audience before we let you go?
I got a couple, local men's breakfasts I'm going to do soon, talking about sonship, talking about father wounds. I'm going to hopefully do a healing I can't talk either. A healing seminar with my wife in Pennsylvania coming up. We're going to be talking about father wounds, mother wounds, and things like that. So that'll be a gig that my mom, boy,
you need to get off the air.
My wife and I will do together, which is an exciting thing for us.
That's fantastic. Well, keep us updated so we can tell people about it. And if anyone who's listening to my conversations in the area can give them an opportunity to go and check it out.
Well, thanks, my brother, for having me on. I appreciate all you do for us, man. I'm telling you, you open up, you give us a safe place, and and that's an awesome thing, man. Thank you.
All the best to you and the family. God bless and keep the faith.
All right, God bless you. All
right, Jay is jumping off, and Sam, Van, C. Will, and if you would like to jump on, would really appreciate it. Hey, Van, oh, good. Have not spoken to Van had Van on the conversation for such. I am excited about this. I am excited about this. Have not heard from Van in such a long time. How are you, sir?
Good. How you been, Doc?
I've been blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles and a solution for someone's problem, and I'm just excited to see you.
Yes. Actually,
how you been?
I've been doing good. Last week I went to a funeral down south, and I actually spent a lot of time talking to Dr. T. I got to call him up.
Oh!
Yeah, we had a long talk. I got to call him up on the phone, and I was asking him some military questions. As you well know, I go into prison doing what I'm doing, talking about the animals. So as fate had it, I wound up on a military base. And I just kind of seen the field of possibilities. So Dr. T, growing up in the military, he helped me so tremendously. It was off the charts. I mean,
that I almost feel like crying, because this is one of the reasons I do all these conversations, to bring people together who didn't know each other beforehand. And, I'm just going to tell people, I actually have Dr. T on Blab on Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, and he's going to talk about the state of education in America. Even if you don't live in America, you need to check out this conversation, because he has evaluated experience in the education system. And he knows his stuff, and he's very passionate. And Van's a great testimonial. I spoke with Dr. T before I came on tonight. He is absolutely phenomenal. He's a phenomenal human being. He's a phenomenal man.
Yeah. So I gave him a hard time. I didn't know I did not know he was on the show.
You didn't?
I didn't. I didn't have a clue. And I happened to find out. I said, man, I said, you didn't tell me you were famous. And he's like, yeah, but it was just so weird thinking that you're talking to somebody, here and there. And I had no idea about that. And I saw it. And I don't know. It took the respect level to a whole new level, to seeing what he went through, what he was trying to do. And see, I didn't know that part. I just thought that he was like a counselor type, or was kind of in education. But yeah, man, it was just kind of neat,
Nice. Well, that makes me very happy. You've brought more to my heart, and I tear up a little bit when I see men that can link up with each other and just have a positive experience. That just really makes me so happy. So thank you so much for sharing that. And but I want to, before we go further, I want to welcome April to the conversation. Thanks for jumping in. If you want to hop into a seat, no problem. When you, Van, think about this subject about men and vulnerability, what are your thoughts too? Because I don't know if the right word is counsel, advise men. What comes to your mind or your heart first when you think about men and dealing with vulnerability?
That most men do not deal with vulnerability at all.
Why?
Pride.
Why?
Just simple pride. Most men feel if they open up, they're weak, inadequate. But what they don't realize is that's where strength will be found, because the right person can shore up your weaknesses.
So when you have conversations with men and the aspect of vulnerability comes up, what are the root causes for them not dealing in a good way with vulnerability? Do they give you reasons why, or do you have reasons why you could share with us?
Well, both. I mean, I think so much of it comes from rejection. People that have been rejected, I mean, they're going to be very, very leery of opening up and being transparent, without doubt. And at least that's been my experience. Like if I was ranking different things, and hey man, when you've been hurt, my father told me a story one time, and I never have forgotten it, that he had a dog that would eat a biscuit. If you'd throw the biscuit into the air, his dog would always grab it right out of the air. So one of his brothers one day threw a rock that looked like a biscuit that hit the dog in the mouth, and the dog never ate another biscuit out of the air again. He made sure it hit the ground before he made an attempt. And I think that's where most people are at. Most people are hurt, they're wounded, and some people don't know how to get help, I mean, it's a cold world out there, man. If you've got if you can count on one hand that you've got many people to be accountable to or open up to, you're very fortunate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I share whenever I do talks or sharing sessions. I say to people, when it comes to friendship, if you have more than this many friends, I don't know if you know what a friend is.
Right.
Or to have, I think it's a very good point. I want to say that if you are a man, if you're going through a vulnerable time, you will know who your men friends are from the ones you're able to share your vulnerabilities with.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the most important friend a man has himself, and he has to share that vulnerability himself. Now, I am not perfect, but I'm saying it all starts with the man sharing that vulnerability with himself. And something I say periodically is the word intimacy. A man has to get into me-see, and he has to see himself saying, you know what? I'm hurting here. I'm hurting. And admit it to himself, and then reach out for others in regards to that. Let me ask, Van, in your journey, whether currently, in the past, what was a vulnerability, if you're comfortable sharing with the audience, that you had to deal with it as a man, and how did you overcome it?
How did I overcome what now?
Well, just saying, if you're comfortable sharing any sort of vulnerability, doesn't matter if it's big or small, that you've dealt with in your manhood journey, and how did you overcome it?
I would think my biggest issue being in that was the fact that I grew up in a very small town, and I moved to one that was not incredibly huge, but one that kind of always looked down where I was from. It was a thing of, well, if you're from that town, you're this, you were ignorant, you were this, you were, other things. And I caught myself trying to compensate for that, trying to force things to prove to others that wasn't so. It wasn't so. But when you hear it enough, it's just like anything else. It can affect you. And one of the things was, Dr. Vibe, the town I was from was known to be a racist town. So when I moved to the town I live in now, I have a lot of African-American friends that I didn't even tell them where I was from until we become friends. And when I told them, they wouldn't believe it. Now, the funny thing about that is nobody black for a long time lived in my town. But the town that I moved to was racist.
Wow.
10 times more racist. And I would tell my friends that. They're like, oh man, you're crazy. I was like, no, I'm telling you the difference. To be a true racist, you almost have to have somebody of that color living in your town. And I said, the town I'm living in now, they have it, but they just talk behind your back. They say it when you walk away, So I grew up with that in so much, Dr. Vibe, that I would actually experience reverse prejudice So I know what it's like to have somebody tell you, well, you must be this because of that. And I hated that. I hated that. Couldn't stand it because I've never been a racist. I just never have, and to be labeled as such is that I learned, that's what people think sometimes until they know the real you. And so that was one of my biggest things, was just I just didn't like that. And I had to do a lot of talking it out and stuff sometimes the world's just not fair,
Yeah. And it's funny. Life is tough, but it's not always fair.
Exactly.
Very much so. Let me ask about the area of if there's a relationship in your mind between accountability and vulnerability. Do you see any relationship there, or any relationship between trust and vulnerability?
Oh, sure.
Could you share with us on that?
I think trust and vulnerability personally go hand in hand. To trust anyone, you're going to have to be vulnerable. You will have to put yourself in a position to be hurt or helped. But you're going to have to be vulnerable. And people that have done that and been burned or taken advantage of, that's why you have a lot of people that they don't want to be transparent. And I can't think of any other place on the planet that's worse to have that going on than living in the United States.
Why do you say that?
Because the United States is so much on image. It's off the charts. I'm not going to say that they're not in Canada, but in my travels, I've just never seen anybody like the U.S. that tries to hide their vulnerability with stuff, with prestige. I'm sure people like that in Canada, but I would say, what do you think? Do you not think America kind of has that,
I think America has that, and I think a lot of the Western world and even the non-Western world follow that.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear where you're coming from in regards to that it's one of those areas from I guess outsider world that I'm in, America leads in. And I think, and you've just brought up another layer about vulnerability and image. And still so many men are consumed about their image. They how can they say, sometimes I have to say to a man, take your mask off.
Well, the more insecure you are, the more you struggle for image.
True.
I mean, it's, and I have dealt with that a lot of times, that, oh, well, if I just get this and just do this. And, if you really read the Bible very closely, King Solomon was a very insecure person. And he had everything. And I don't just mean on paper, he had everything. But when you read about him, that's what was going on with him. And all the stuff in the world will not mask insecurity. As a matter of fact, I think the harder someone tries, the more they're advertising it.
Okay. Do you think that is it more of a challenge for men today than it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago? Or is it the same, or is it less?
Well, that's a good question, Dr. Vibe.
As I said to people, once in a while I come up with good questions. Once in a while.
I would say more, and I would say for the only reason of the fact of social media. Now manhood's always had a struggle. I mean, that's nothing new, of course, but I would say in the time that we're living would be the reason why is right. I mean, isn't that why, most people put something on Facebook to get how many likes and, and all this stuff. And well, if, this person doesn't do this. I mean, when we were growing up, I don't know how it was with you, but, you wrote a girl a note you had a checkbox, yes or no.
That was it.
That's pretty, and you either got 1 like or you got 0 likes. I mean,
exactly. It was either one or none. Yeah. Not hundreds and thousands and millions. Just to interrupt for a sec. Thanks, Danny Redwine. Thank you for coming into the conversation. And if you want to jump in, this conversation is for men and those who like them. So many of my conversations on my manhood show conversation, women jump in. So do not feel afraid. Don't feel like you have to stay back in the audience. Same thing with April, and also see Will. If you want to jump in, be more than happy to. I know that, Van, you do a lot of work in the church. How challenging is this issue for men in the church, vulnerability in the church that you deal with?
It's not that big of a deal in church, really. I mean, as it is outside. I seem to, like people that are not churched. I'm not going to say there's no one at church. I'm just, if I was playing percentages, it's just different out in the world, because one thing that I found out, that as you grow in your faith, it seems like you seek accountability and vulnerability. That the further you go in your journey, that you seem to, I do, and I've been in it a while. I crave it. I love it when people, bring me to accountability, and I have people like that in my life. But I would say, if, now in the world, it's a whole different ball game, is because sometimes then you're dealing with the fact that it's a cold, cruel world, and you've got people out there that's been hurt by the church. You know what I'm saying? You've got two things you're dealing with a lot of times. And unfortunately, the church is one of the best places to get help, but it's also one of the best places to be hurt.
You know what? Bing, bang, bong. I will say boom to that. No doubt about it. Thank you, Danny, so much for your wonderful comments. And don't be afraid to jump on. And she definitely agrees with your comments about the church is one of the best or worst places to get help or to get hurt. Also want to welcome Ahmed. If you want to jump on, Ahmed, more than happy to. Want to continue the conversation here about, I guess, how I want to take this. When it comes to vulnerability, I think men have to know where their source of strength is before they show their strength. Would you agree?
Yes.
Where do you get your source of strength from as a man so you can handle vulnerability well?
2 places, I would say. I would say from the fact that I had a strong father in my life and grandfather, but more so than that, from the Word of God. I believe everything that it says, and I just, if that's telling me how it's wanting me to be and how it's wanting me to live, I just follow it. I don't claim to be anything. The one trait that I have that I would have to say that I would admire in myself is obedience. I follow orders and I don't question a lot of it. It works for me, as far as, but that's what makes me, that's what fuels my fire, I guess.
That's a good point, that in regards to where you get your sort of, I want also, the Bible's still a living document, but you said your father and your grandfather. Can you share a little bit about how they provided strength for you to handle vulnerability better today?
Just by they told me things very early in life where I didn't have to figure out a lot of things the hard way, if that makes sense. My father was 30 years older than me, as he's still living. And my grandfather was 30 years older than him. So he was 60. And we would get together and talk. And you're talking about between them. Look at all those years of wisdom, and I would just listen to them. And when they would say stuff like, "Man, you're going to wish you hadn't, or you shouldn't ever," I would just listen to that. You know, I wished I would have done it earlier even, but I got around to doing that, and just speak into my life, you know, and that's the kind of father I want to be, because I have 2 sons and a daughter, and my 2 sons are in college now, but just hand down the good stuff. And if it's not working, abandon it and find what is.
That's a good point. Good point.
You know, I mean,
good point. It's simple.
You know, and so, yeah, I just think that, I don't know. I just think that's the best way. That's found what's worked for me. I was always one of those type of people that like to be around older people. I can remember when I was a teenager, even if it wasn't my father or grandfather, I would tend to want to get around older people, because I knew they knew something I didn't. And I was always the kind of kid growing up, I couldn't count how many times I got lost, Dr. Vibe, just seeing what was over the next hill. I had to know. And so I was asking guys when I can remember in high school, asking these men that were sometimes in their 50s about marriage, about, you know, what can I expect here and stuff. And I would get all this data together. And then that way, when my day came, man, I had years of experience. And I think the best way to pass a test is know what the answers are before you even get it. It makes it easier. I mean,
I got now. Seawill Builder has a question here now. Seawill, I want you to come on, but if you got a good conversation piece like this one, definitely. He's asking, what is your experience with having vulnerability in your relationships, and does it strengthen or weaken them?
I think well, I don't know. It's a good question, because chances are, if it's weakening a relationship, it's not going to be very relational very long, because I believe to have a relationship, you have to have 2 people being able to relate. And if somebody feels very threatened and they're not going to open up anymore, or if they feel like you've burned them or something like that, you cannot have a relationship unless you relate. So I believe it goes back to this, that if people are willing to continue a relationship and sharing their vulnerability, and it works out fine for both parties, because that's synonymous with getting a good deal, right? Both parties have to feel like they're getting a good deal for it to be a good deal. And I think if that's going on, man, you've got a lot of strength.
I would just add to that not only, for me anyways, not only the both parties have to win, but the audience, whatever that audience is, has to win too. There have to be people bigger outside of you that have to get a win out of it. That's just where I come from. Ahmed, welcome for joining. Thanks for always coming in. What would you like to add to the conversation?
I'm kind of trying to recuperate from an illness. So forgive me.
No problem.
But I did want to come on and in this state and actually share this as a vulnerability, since we were kind of on it and addressing what C. Will was saying. I think that it strengthens a relationship when you know that I am vulnerable, that there are things that I don't know. There are areas that I'm weak. There are situations where I don't have the answers. That makes me human.
Right.
So what strengthens me, though, is knowing that I have other men that I can go to and be comfortable and safe with exposing those vulnerabilities and having them strengthened.
Well put. Well put. See, Will, you've got lots of ammunition for the conversation piece you put out there. Anything you want to add to that, Van?
No, I mean, I think Ahmed summed that up beautifully.
Nice. Really, and the man comes on even when he's not 100%. Like I'm impressed. I am impressed.
He's powering through.
Absolutely through. And I just want to have both you gentlemen just continue on this point. How important do people need to realize that vulnerability means admitting when you're wrong? And I know for some men it is a hard thing. And Van, you mentioned it earlier about men being able to admit that they're wrong. Either one of you want to delve down a little bit deeper on that one?
For me, I never have an issue admitting when I'm wrong, especially if I see it. If I see it, then it's not a problem. Sometimes I may need help or assistance in seeing, an error, showing me where I made the slip up. But I'm always open for that, because ultimately for me, it's about being better. So if I could use an error to get better, then I'm not so focused on just being right, but how can I be better for the next time?
True. Very true. Absolutely key. Van, anything you want to add about men knowing that vulnerability means admitting when you're wrong?
Yeah, I would say the quickest route to that is just marriage. Would be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife.
Why do you say that? I know there's a reason behind that one.
Because I cannot express the times that my wife has been right. And I don't care what level it's on. Like, it can come down to buying a shirt. Sometimes she'll be like, "You're not going to wear that shirt." Yeah, I will. I buy it and I don't wear it. And she has protected me from things I didn't even see coming. She's got that radar. She's being in church circles, there's been a few times where she's identified a Jezebel real early that I wouldn't even thought. I used to think she's real judgmental, and she's told me a few times, you need to watch that lady. You need to kind of. And I used to think, early on that she was very judgmental, but she was right. And I had to come to realize that, man, she's got my back, and she's probably taught me more about myself on how to handle being wrong than any other human being on the planet. And I love her for that. I know that if she comes and tells me that, she's going to be spot on, and I might as well just go ahead and admit it that I'm wrong.
I was just talking to my wife and kids about this. We were out to dinner and we were with some friends, and one of the friends, the way he was kind of talking to his wife, he was trying to convey that like he had the correct answer. But he wasn't really listening to his wife. I was, because she's not my wife, so I could hear exactly what she was saying. And I made the point that there's more than one right answer. That's what I learned in marriage, that there's more than one right answer. So while he was really trying to be right, he was overshadowing the point that she was really trying to make. He just wasn't hearing it. So for me, I understand that in conversations and in dialogue, that there could be another right answer.
Wow.
True.
Good. That's good stuff. That is very, very good. Gentlemen, I'm appreciating your being transparent, honest, taking some of your journey and sharing it with the audience. I think that's very important. And I also want, though, to have you both talk about when you are admitting vulnerability, it's not from a position of weakness.
Yeah, for me, being vulnerable, it's about being better. It's about connecting in trust with the person. So, when I'm sharing or exposing a vulnerability, again, that is to let the person know as well that I trust them at a very, very deep level. And, sometimes in sharing that and allowing myself to connect to that person, even if that person doesn't understand the depth of what I'm communicating and my vulnerability, it strengthens me because now I've released some of the attachment to the vulnerability, if that makes any sense. So I'm not so emotionally attached to being vulnerable about that thing because I've exposed it.
Van, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah.
Agreement?
I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I think you're spot on.
Excellent. Just want to welcome S. Rashim to the conversation. I know that you had some questions about men and vulnerability. You can either type them in the side, or even better, if you have a moment, come on to the screen and ask these two gentlemen about men and vulnerability from their perspective. So either or would be appreciated. Gentlemen, both of you are raising young men. What are you sharing, or examples on how to handle vulnerability are you providing them?
Well, I have let them know that my door is open anytime. And from the time they've been young, they both know that they can talk to me about anything. And the thing about it is usually I know what's going on before they come to me. Mm-hmm. Having, watched them from infants, that I could tell when my son had met a girl at college. He'd come back home and I'm like, I know that boy's fell in love. He doesn't even know what world he's in. I was scared he's going to walk out in traffic and get killed somewhere. It was that bad. and I told his mother, and she's like, no, I'm telling you that he's fooled around, and he's found him a girl, and like that. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, he finally said, well, I've met someone, and so on and so forth. I think that when you're really close to people, and ironically enough, the three men I have in my life can detect the same things about me when I need to talk. They would be just like I am with my sons, to be able to say, hey, this guy's, he's not right, man. Something's not right here. Something's, and I just thank God I got people like that to go to. And I just, thank the Lord that my sons have that, to do that. I want them to have other people in their life naturally when they get older, but man, that's a hard thing too there, because you gotta be careful, That's the way I see it anyway.
Ahmed.
One of the things that I do with my sons is I keep a very lighthearted attitude to let them know that the door is open, like Van was saying. So when they come, I'm not going to be so taken aback or so serious about, the approach that it makes them apprehensive. So the door, my attitude door, is always open because I keep a lighthearted attitude. And I have to balance myself that way because I'm always so serious in business. So in my personal life, I have to make sure that my attitude is lighthearted.
Nice. Excellent. Just going to call it again. Rasheem, I know you had some questions. I hope you're going to share them with the audience and the gentlemen, because we're going to be probably shutting down pretty soon. So anyone who has any questions for these gentlemen or just general comments about vulnerability and men, please, you're more than welcome either type them in on the side or come on and give your thoughts. They are good men. They will certainly answer them to the best of their abilities. They don't represent all men around the world, so just easy on them. But certainly they can give their perspective when it comes to men. Okay, so as for Rasheem, here she goes. Do men feel like there is such a thing as too much vulnerability?
I do.
Go ahead.
I don't think it's really totally good to just totally be vulnerable all the time. Because me personally, I don't think that women would dig that anyway. I mean,
there's a go ahead. That's a good question. Now, as for Rasheem, as a lady,
yeah,
how would you handle that? Like, how much vulnerability do you want to see in a man? But go on, Van. Go ahead. And I want Rasheem to come in because I think that's a good conversation piece. But go on, Van.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just really it. I mean, I just don't think, in other words, I don't think you need to always tell everything or wear your feelings on your sleeve, you know, or, I mean, everything shouldn't bother you. And if it does, maybe sometimes it's not even worth being voiced. You know, there is something you need to hold back. And I think.
Good stuff. Ahmed.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Van on that. Like, my vulnerability, there's going to be a time and a place that it's going to be a strategic time and place for it. You know, but more so if we're looking at it from a relationship standpoint, man and woman, then it's going to be strategic. And with men that I trust, then I just kind of wear it on my sleeve. It's like, okay, here it is. And what can I do to get stronger? You know? But yeah, even with my wife, I'm like, you know, I'm Superman, you know, until there's kryptonite around.
There you go. Yeah. Ash Rasheem says, I like exclusive vulnerability, meaning being vulnerable with specific people. I like vulnerability when it is coupled with strength. But then again, is how do you balance that? And are men equipped to balance? Are most men or men in general able to balance vulnerability and strength? Do they know when to let it go and when to reel it in?
Well, I think that again, I think that men, we need to talk to other men that we trust, because I may need to talk to Dr. Vibe. Which I'm sure that I do.
Thank you.
And have that conversation about when is the time appropriate for this particular situation. You know, sometimes I may need to ask another man's point of view to find out. And I mean, I'm 46, but still I need to ask another man's point of view to get a better sense of this particular thing. When should I be sharing it and when shouldn't I share it?
Okay. Now, just some comments on the side. Sam_Teague. Now, he first said, I believe that you have to put all your cards on the table when it comes to vulnerability. And then he says, I don't believe that you have to put all your cards on the table. So which one is it, Sam? Then Danny Redwine. I think men are full of chicken wings 90% of the time. I haven't experienced a healthy relationship with any man, only God, and I'm good with that. Then Rasheem has another conversation piece. Have you ever regretted being vulnerable?
I would say everyone has.
Okay.
Everyone.
Ahmed?
Yeah, I definitely have. I have shared vulnerability, and then as soon as it came out, wish that I could take it back. It may not have been the appropriate time. The person may not have been ready to see that at that moment. So yeah, definitely I've regretted it.
I think, and I don't put too much into my conversations, I let the guests, the friends, and the audience drive. I think when it comes to vulnerability, that one of the key points, just like if you're doing a presentation, know your audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
True.
The better you know your audience, the better you'll be able to address the vulnerability. There's an old saying, there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah.
So there's also a time, there's also a place, and there's also the person.
I'd like some clarification from Danny Redwine when she said men are full of chicken wings 90% of the time.
I was waiting for a man to buck up on that comment. Danny, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because when she said that she hasn't experienced a healthy relationship with any man, I'm in no way trying to be offensive to her, but that might be more about her and not the men.
Now she says, literally, LOL, barbecue, honey mustard, you know. Father figure, boyfriends, husband. So, okay, I'm not connecting 100%. So I don't know if she's saying that joke.
I think I got it. I think
I'm flawed. Okay, I'm flawed, but I'm willing to learn. We all are.
Yeah, Danny. Yeah. I think I have what she's saying. Yeah, and if the unhealthy relationship started with the father and the father figure, that could translate into why there's an unhealthy relationship with the boyfriend and the husband.
And I think that's a very important point, that men who are out there who are fathers, they don't realize that not only do they have impact to if they have sons, but they also have impact if they have daughters. And they need to show the vulnerability to both, because they may not realize this, but the core impression of manhood that sons and daughters get is from their father, whether the father is there or not.
Right.
Yep.
So if a father is there and he can show good, positive examples of vulnerability, it will set the sons and daughters up for success to give it a good example of what vulnerability is all about. And these two gentlemen, they have said this is what they do. I fully endorse what they do for their young men and their young daughters in their families.
Yeah, and and I mean, I know the topic is about vulnerability, but also in how I show strength, how I show love, compassion, how I listen, even my touch, every night. I hug my sons before we go to bed, and they're big guys, so we hug and say we love each other every night. And, I just feel that as a man, I have to convey a lot of different things, a lot of different connections in a single day to make sure that everyone is getting a healthy piece of me.
Van, anything you want to add on?
I firmly believe that the greatest, thing in vulnerability as a parent, if you're talking along those lines, is to admit when you made a mistake. And there's been quite a few of those teaching moments that I've had for my children, having been in ministry, and how to deal with people and things such of that nature. But I believe the best thing that will come down to the lessons they'll learn, both for my sons and my daughter, is how I treat their mother. I would take that one over any of them, me personally, So
vulnerability at the marriage level definitely is a bellwether for other form of vulnerability.
Yeah, I agree.
Ahmed, you want to add to anything to that?
Yeah, again, Van hit the nail on the head, showing not only my sons how I treat their mother, but also showing my sons how I treat my mother. The love and admiration that I have for my mother. And when she speaks, I'll never stand over top of her. When she speaks, I always sit down, so I wouldn't care if I had to sit on the floor, but just to show honor and respect to her is vital. So I have to show my sons that it goes both ways. Not only am I telling them to do a thing with their mother, but they get to see the example of what I'm doing with mine.
When are there any areas, and hopefully be transparent, have your children come to you expressing areas of vulnerability, and how did you handle that? Either one of you.
When they come expressing it?
Have there been moments where they have come to you expressing a vulnerability?
Oh, yeah.
And how did you handle it?
Yeah, in every case that they ever did was usually something that somebody said that wasn't true. And so, well, you know how people can be and how cruel people can be, even when you're adult, much less when you're young. And I would just always re-encourage them, is because that's where it always seemed to be systemic from. And I can remember that when I was growing up, that's where I'd always have my problems, with somebody said or something. And I loved it when they came, is because then I got to tell them, you know what? You're going to have to deal with this the rest of your life. It really doesn't get any better, is because it's all going to come down to how you respond. And, I don't care what you do. Another thing that my grandfather always said, he said, son, if everybody likes you, you're doing something wrong. Not everybody's going to like what you do or what you stand for or whatever. So you got to learn how to pass press that. That was always the issues that I had with them.
I mean, anything you want to add on that?
I make sure that when my sons have approached me with vulnerability, that I really have my listening hat on. That I try to make sure that I'm listening deeply. And I try to make sure I turn my solution hat off. So I want them to know that I'm an ear until I get the question. So what should I do? Right. Then I'll put my solution hat back on.
And is that different? Should that differ in any way when men are vulnerable with each other?
I don't think that it should differ. I think that we should allow a person to get it out, get it all out, and then ask for a solution before we start just providing answers to something that where we may not know the entire story. So that's one of the things that I've really been working on my listening skills. Someone gave me an exercise to practice listening intently for 5 minutes every day. And I've really been working on that. Hey, Van, I lost Dr. Vibe. Did you?
I believe I did too. Yeah, just now.
Maybe he's going to refresh or something. I guess while we're waiting for Dr. Vibe, maybe we could take some questions from the side. I guess I'm the only one, huh?
I'm back.
Good.
Yeah, Van, I saw you drop off, but you know, if you don't come back, thanks again for some outstanding thought process and conversation on this. This is you guys have been doing an outstanding job, and I know you have been because the people who have come into the room have not left. So they are engaged, and I really appreciate that both of you came. Well, Van is left. I don't know if he's going to come back in, but both of you, just fantastic stuff that you guys are sharing tonight. Anyone have any questions when it comes to men and vulnerability? Probably let this conversation go, recorded part, go on for the next few minutes or so. S. Rashim, thank you for what you've provided conversation-wise. Also, shout out, as always, to Isabel Sanchez. Thank you so much for coming in and providing your support as always. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. And Leon Henry from across the boat. My battery is dying. No problem, Van. Hey, thank you so much. Rashim, want to come in for a second before we shut down the recorded part of the conversation? Any questions? I will put it out there, and I said at the beginning of the conversation tonight, if anyone wants to listen to some great thought process about vulnerability, there's a lady out there named Brené Brown. Fantastic stuff on vulnerability. B-R-E-N-E Brown has done a lot of stuff on empathy, on vulnerability, and that's where I got the thought process to host this conversation tonight from a great video she did called Vulnerability versus Empathy. It's a great video that I think everyone should check out, male, female. So what we're going to do, we're going to probably wind down the conversation tonight. Any last words, Ahmed, that you would like to share about manhood and vulnerability?
One thing is that do I have an echo?
No, I can hear you okay.
Good. One thing that I do is I'm always showing vulnerability. Sometimes I will mask it though, and see if someone in my current listener group can pick up on it. And if someone in my audience picks up on it, then I'll reveal it. But I'm always exposing vulnerability because I'm being me. So I don't want to keep, well, this is this mask that I wear, and then this is this mask, but no, I'm just me, and I'm exposing different parts of it. Sometimes I use it as an exercise to see what can I expose and what is one going to pick up on. But I'm never really afraid of exposing anything, because at the end of the day, I have to be able to live with myself, and I can't live for anyone else, and no one else can live for me. So I don't have any ego attached to exposing vulnerability.
Excellent. Fantastic. Just want to thank Dan stopping in, coming to the tail end of the conversation. Unless you have some questions about vulnerability or statements about vulnerability and men, we'll probably be looking at closing down the conversation. If anyone else has anything they'd like to share. See, Will, I thought you'd jump into the conversation tonight, but I guess you've been on Blab too much, so you're taking some time off from putting your face out there, but that's no problem.
He wasn't camera ready.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, that's the term, right. Camera ready. That's correct. Using camera ready. Dan, any questions or comments you have about men and vulnerability before we shut down the recorded part? Oh, very good comment by Kinder_Foster. Never let your kids not see the real you. Be the example you want for them. Well put.
Well put.
Well, it is Dr. Vibe here. I'm the host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. I'm also CEO and president of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. I'm also host of Epic Conversations. So if you want to catch me, you can always catch me on Blab. You can catch me at my website, www.thedrvibeshow.com. You can catch me at the Good Men Project. You can catch me at WJMS Radio. You can also catch me at I don't know, I'm all over the place. If you want to touch base with me, email vibe at thedrvibeshow.com. Also, you can touch base with me at Twitter at drvibeshow. I'd like to thank everyone who jumped on the conversation, from Jay to C. Will to Sam, who hopefully has stopped driving and watching Blab, to Ahmed, to Abella, to S. Rashim, to Danny, to Dan, to Leon. Thank you so much. And I always appreciate when people come onto the conversation, and whether they jump in to a seat or not, they stay for a long time. Also, big shout out to Vance, who had not seen him jump on a conversation for a while. What's coming up on the Dr. Vibe show? I'll keep this recording. Tomorrow night, I am continuing to host and produce my series, What Do Blacks Want and Why? Tomorrow night, What Do Blacks Want and Why? Media. So definitely 9 p.m. tomorrow evening Eastern time. And then special conversation happening. And I know Ahmed's already subscribed to it. Thursday night, boom time. Dr. Marvin Thompson talking about education in America. People, even if you don't live in America, as I was saying at the front end maybe of the conversation, you need to check out this conversation. Dr. Thompson has spent at least 35 years of his life. 30? Now, I know how old he is. So it can't be 35. More than 25 years of his life in the education system. He is good stuff. He was on a Blab that I host and produced a few weeks ago, and he basically took it over, and I let him take it over because he was so good. He's going to be talking about education in America. We've got 4 different areas that he wants to talk and share about on Thursday night. I suggest you check it out. He is a very humble gentleman, because he, a number of years ago, had an award-winning documentary on the Oprah Network. So he brings a lot of credibility to the table. So I highly encourage everyone to check it out. 1 or 2 last things. I did put in the chat room that if you want to keep up to date on where Dr. Vibe or what Dr. Vibe's doing online, there is a link that you can click on and bookmark it, and it has up to date what Dr. Vibe is doing online. I'm just going to type it out again. See if I can type link and bookmark it. I have updated it, Mark. I did update it this evening, so there's some updated entries. There it is. http://bit.ly/Dr.Vibe-conversations. So that'll keep you up to date on what Dr. Vibe is doing online. So, as always, I like to say you're blessed and highly favored. You're a magnet for miracles and you're a solution for someone's problem. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith and see you next week. Actually, if you go to my blog page too, I have the next 3 Tuesdays manhood subjects already there. So they are already in place. So hope you can check it out. And if there's anything I can do to help anyone out, just holler out and always walk good. Good night. God bless.